Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of AM Radio, the audio version. I still haven't really progressed on fixing my studio, but it's coming. Also, a website. I was going to leave this for the end, but a website is coming. I'll be able to share all my videos and views and links and... Well, maybe I shouldn't hype it up so much before... might be another month before it comes out, but anyway... A website is coming out, so there's a lot of AM radio to come your way. If you're interested into libertarian and fiscal conservative news, that's going to be your resource to go to for some years to come indeed. So that's something to look forward to. What I want to discuss today is... It just reflects on how bad this economy is. I had this experience on Friday. Well, currently I'm casually employed, see, and I was looking for a job with more hours and better pay. So I went to what was advertised on the internet as a full-time position offering with Sydney Trains. The position I applied for was customer service. That's something I believe I could provide well, since I've done many jobs in that department. Anyway, the job turned out to be... Well, I didn't get it first, so it's a relief knowing now that what the job actually was, that I didn't get it. It was toilet cleaner. It was advertised as customer service. Anyway, regardless of the fact that it was a toilet cleaning position, there were between, I don't know, 200 or 300 people there applying for it. A lot of them were, dignified looking, mature people in business suits who had probably been laid off from their previous positions. They're all going there. You would imagine a lot of them would be overqualified to do it, but they want to do it anyway. As I am overqualified to do that job, I didn't know that it was going to be toilet cleaner anyway. I didn't get the job. The reason I didn't get the job, well, even if they had offered it to me, there's other ways I can take. I don't have to do that. But I went there and not knowing what it was, because they didn't explain it. I had passed already 2 stages of checking. They checked my references. They checked my. I did some online tests as well, and now the 3rd stage was to go there and do a test. So I went there, and since I got there, after finding out what it was actually about, well, I thought, since I'm here already, I might as well try my luck, and we'll see how it goes. I don't have to accept it, and even if I had passed that test, there was still. After that, you go for 3 weeks of some assessment. What do they call it? Some bullshit. You go for 3 weeks of some assessments, and even then, it's not for certain if they'll offer the position to you. It's morbid how much expectations they put on people who want to be toilet cleaners. Well, good luck to them, to those who pass. They didn't want to be a toilet cleaner anyway. But, alright, the story is that I went there, I did the test. Well, the first part of the test included reading proficiency and they give you trick questions, they give you scenarios you need to answer questions. I passed that. And for every single test, only those who finished in the top 30% of the of everyone who had taken it got to advance to the next stage. The other 70% were sent back. So I was in the top 30% who stayed after that one. Then after that we had two more tests, and the whole process took 5 hours, from 7 in the morning till afternoon. And so I stuck there. I did my best in those tests. And the second part of the test was reading train maps, imaginary train maps, and giving customers instructions, like if a train departs at this time and another train departs at that kind of stuff. what station will they meet at? What time will this train arrive? How many minutes after that train will this train arrive? Things like that. Really, really. I mean, I passed that as well. I passed it as well. So I moved on to the third and last stage. And the third and last stage, if I had known what it was going to be, I wouldn't have even attempted. I would have just left. I wouldn't have done the 5 hours of pointless testing, because the third test was advanced mathematics. Now, to me, it's advanced. To some of you who are really intellectual might not be. But, I mean, I hadn't done math. I didn't do math in high school. I hadn't done math since middle school. And I'm 26. So it's been, what? Oh, wow. Since I was 13 or 14. So at least 12 years since I haven't done math at all. And I was confronted with questions. Now, you had 8 minutes for this last test, and you had 35 questions to answer. And I didn't even have a watch that morning. I couldn't find my watch. So I just kind of hoped that I would. My hopes, to be honest, weren't high, because I never was good at math. I didn't expect to do well, but I had made it that far, and might as well try. No point leaving, without even trying at this point. So I did my 35 questions in 8 minutes, and the questions were not what's 2 plus 2. The questions were, what's 16% of the result of 3,549 divided by 876? Something like that. And every single question was like that. And you had a blank sheet of paper you could do your math on. If I could remember how to calculate percentages, I hardly even used that piece of paper, because I was hopeless. Something like that to me. I mean, I can tell you what this minus that is, or that times that is, but when it comes to this divided by that and the percentage of, that's mind-blowing stuff to me. I mean, and what's even more mind-blowing is that they expect people who are going to be toilet cleaners to do this. Otherwise, you don't qualify to be a toilet cleaner. Isn't that crazy? And from what I could see, a lot of people there were mature, certainly at least college graduate level, people who had lots of years in business administration careers, because they were, a lot of them had gray hair wearing business suits. You wouldn't expect to see them applying for a position like that. Well, I'm certain a lot of them didn't know what kind of a position it would be, but same as I didn't know. And a lot of them got turned back. So did I. And a guy who was sitting next to me, who had 3 kids, had been to many of these kind of seminars and seminar/exam seminar, whatever it is. I'd never been to something like. No, I have actually in Japan when I was doing some factory work. We had to sit some exam, but that was 1,000 times easier, and at least the questions were directly relevant to the line of work you were doing, like in terms of lifting boxes and stuff like that. Proper way to lift a box. Proper way to sign in, that kind of stuff. No, but you have advanced mathematics, advanced language skills. All right, language skills is fine, because at some point you're going to have to interact with customers, and in order to interact with them successfully, you need to have a sufficiently proficient knowledge of the English language, fluency in English. And a lot of people pass that. Well, no, I mean a lot of people. 70, the bottom 70% didn't make it. Anyway, the politicians who run this country, who screw the economy up so bad that companies now have to resort to having these excruciatingly hard tests in order to hire anyone, because they can't afford to hire as many people as they need, because the government put so much red tape on hiring. You have to provide everyone superannuation and insurance, even if the people and everyone has to be on Medicare. Everyone's paying for their Medicare and taxes, but in spite of that, the company still has to pay for their private insurance, and it's a huge drain on them. So to pay for that, to pay for superannuation, pay for this and that and the other thing, of course they're only going to want to hire a genius, even if it is for a toilet position. And the funny thing is, you can't even if you get this position at Sydney Trains to clean the toilets after passing all that math mumbo jumbo, and then going to do the 3 weeks of examinations, even then you can't transfer to a different position. You need to sit the whole thing all over again, it seems. You can't. So basically, so it would make sense that further down the road you could actually apply for a higher position, but it doesn't work that way. You can't eventually hope to be in a board of directors unless you do another set of tests, and I bet those tests are even more grilling. Wow. And I knew that in order to work at McDonald's, you needed to do 2 interviews before they would accept you, if you're lucky enough to even be given the opportunity to do the first interview. So out of those selected to attend the first interview, only a few are selected to after that do the second interview. Man, I've had a number of job interviews in the past week, and one of them was really mad. Like it was like speed dating kind of thing. Speaking of speed dating, they were. I'm just gonna digress for a second. Go back to the Sydney Trains. So they were saying that if you pass this exam, there's another date you need to attend something that's called like a. They explained it. It's similar to speed dating, only you answer questions as fast as you can. Blah blah blah. And then if you pass that, you go to another. Ooh. Anyway, this interview that I attended, it was like 50 people applying for one position, and a lot of them seemed very qualified. One lady I spoke to said she graduated from Oxford in England, so I had no hopes against her. I'd only had a bachelor's degree from a second-rate college, but I still tried my best, and I went there and I did the interview. The way in which this guy did the interview with me, there was nothing humane about it. It was like questions. He was throwing questions, asking me very elaborate questions, and I start explaining. I start talking as fast as I can and as honestly as I can, and he would interrupt me because he's out of time. He doesn't have time. He wants to move on to the next person, and it felt like some kind of assembly line bullshit. If I was hiring people, now I understand he wants the most qualified, best person for the position, but how can he possibly find out so much, enough relevant information about people in order to hire them if that's the process which he uses to screen them? It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to find anything out about people by flying through them like that. Instead, if I was an employer, I would only accept to see a maximum of 10 people, maybe 5 people would be enough to see, to have an interview with. And unless these people were, born under a rock, and completely incapable of communicating in a sentient way, I wouldn't, those are the kind of people that I wouldn't see. But if you're a decent looking, dressed appropriately for work, show that you have, willingness to work, and if you're qualified enough, just barely enough, then I would be more than happy to see. I would only see maybe 5 people a day, or maybe even 5 people, period, for the position that I'm looking to fill. And I would have a long enough interview and let them finish the answering the questions that I asked them in order to actually judge and see which one is the best. But the way they were doing it here and the way they were doing it for Sydney Trains, I mean, I guess they're looking for someone qualified enough, but it's getting out of hand. I mean, you end up getting people who are overqualified, and with the way that exam for Sydney Trains and the whole hiring process is structured, the only way you're gonna have employees doing that is you're only gonna get people who are overqualified. That's the only way you possibly can fill that position with the way the system that they have. So from now on, I'm definitely going to see toilet cleaners at Sydney Trains in a different light, because they certainly are not, well, their position doesn't reflect on their academic or intellectual properties whatsoever. They might they might very well be geniuses. They certainly were better qualified than myself to do it, and kudos to them. A lot of them must be happy to just have work. I'm not in that desperate position to like the guy with 3 kids. By the way, he didn't get the job either, and that had been like a 10th time he had been to a crazy. He told me he had been to even crazier examination sessions than this one with other government agencies. And Sydney Trains is run by the government, and apparently, according to him, every government agency has crazy screening way of screening people, giving you impossible mathematical and all kinds of questions. So I believe him. After seeing this, I definitely believe him. And the problem is, my point is, I mean, it's a funny story to tell, and it's a really weird story to tell. But my point is, the government, both Labour and Liberal governments, have screwed this up to a point of no return now in order to get the most undignifying, most basic kind of employment. And this job wasn't even full-time. It was part-time. They weren't offering full-time as they had advertised. They said, oh, we're sorry, we're not offering full-time. Just as hundreds of people had shown up. They figured if they hadn't lied about it, probably people wouldn't have shown up. And if they had told about the actual detail of work, what it's going to involve, cleaning toilets for 4 hours a day, by the way, I bet even fewer people would have shown up. Except for those who are really, really desperate. But they wanted to have as big a pool as possible. And from that huge pool, only pick out 2 or 3 geniuses. Now, my theory is that these politicians who have fucked up the country, pardon the language, so bad, who have messed us up so bad to the point where it's impossible to get a job unless you're a genius, even to do a most mundane labor filled kind of job there is, they don't have to go through the same scrutiny, through the same examination as the people who clean toilets. It would be at least as fair to make these people, sit the same kind of exams. Wouldn't you like to know that the Prime Minister of Australia is at least as qualified as a toilet cleaner for Sydney Trains? You find me, I challenge you, all right? You find me a person who can, in less than 15 seconds, I'm no mathematician, but I'm guessing probably, if you have 35 questions and you have 8 minutes to do them, you have less than 15 seconds or something like that, 15 seconds, let's say 15 seconds to answer 35 questions, each of which is something along the lines of, what 16% of 3,549 divided by 876? All right, you find me a person that smart, and you have yourself a genius there. And that genius is just qualified enough to work for Sydney Trains. And wouldn't you like to know if Tony Abbott or Chris Bowden or any of those clowns are qualified enough to do? I mean, they have their degrees. I have my degree. I have my uni degree, but uni degree doesn't mean crap these days. Doesn't mean shit these days. You have to do these kind of exams. You said those clowns to do those exams, and let's see if 70% of members of parliament are going to pass. Well, I somehow sincerely doubt it. All right. Oh, another thing that's going on just briefly, Malcolm Turnbull challenging, it seems, Prime Minister Tony Abbott to be the Prime Minister. He wants to pull the same switcheroo that Julia Gillard did with Kevin Rudd, but he's being subtle about it. Same as she was. She completely dismissed and laughed in the faces of those who were suggesting that she was doing that. But he certainly looks like he's campaigning for himself, and you'd have to be a fool not to. And I'm sure everyone can see through his charade. He is out there trying to overturn Tony Abbott to lead the party. Now, God forbid that happens. As you know, I don't really like Tony Abbott. I think he's a fake conservative. He doesn't cherish. Well, he is more of a man of principle than Chris Bowden, that's for sure, or Malcolm Turnbull for that matter. He's a Christian. They're all Christian, all right. I'm not even Christian, but I look at him, I look at his values, and Tony Abbott at least talks about his values. I believe he does have some values, and some things he's maybe not willing to compromise on. Now, some of his decisions are as poor as you can get. Reintroducing the caste system, seriously. And instead of being the fiscal conservative and just cutting down on government spending, no. Instead, we're having politicians' salaries rising. We're having dozens of other arbitrary government departments coming up. He's going to spend $120 billion over the next 4 years on infrastructure and things. In a time of we don't have any money in the the national debt of Australia is how many millions of dollars now? Something like, I don't know. I've lost track. I should have looked this up before I started recording. But is how many million a day? Just the interest on our loans because of the previous government. And in spite of that, he's raising taxes on this and that, on Medicare. He's introducing new taxes. He's astronomically raising taxes on tobacco. He's funding further and further police campaigns to fight marijuana, to go and break up marijuana trade. Instead of just legalizing marijuana, that way we wouldn't have to spend billions of dollars fighting it. Now, so many things that he does are inane, but at least he is a man of principles. Bowden, on the other hand, all right, I was talking about Malcolm Turnbull. Both Malcolm Turnbull and Bowden, on the other hand, are, I believe, not men of principle as much as he is. And the case in point with Bowden. By the way, Bowden, if you don't know, is the Australian Labour Party leader. It's currently in the opposition of Tony Abbott, who is the Conservative leader. So this Bowden, when he was with backing Julia Gillard, when she was the Prime Minister and he was in her party, he was saying, in response to one reporter's question, I don't remember who the reporter was, but what he thinks of her remarks. He said, he was a robot. This man is a robot. He has no mind of his own. And just look at him. Find a video of him saying this, doing the whole interview with this reporter. The reporter might as well be talking to a wall that says, I agree, I agree, I agree. Because he was just saying that same thing. He was saying, no matter what I didn't hear what the Prime Minister said, but I agree with her. I don't know what the Prime Minister's policies are, but I'm going to support them. Whatever the Prime Minister's policies are, I'm going to support. I'm not exaggerating this. He actually said all these things in that same way. These are exact quotes that I remember him saying. If you don't believe me, watch it. How can someone say this on air? I mean, secretly, a lot of politicians are like that. They will just support whoever's in their, they don't want any heat. They don't want any. They want to keep being recommended by their party to hold their seat. They don't want to be. They don't want to alienate their party. They want to be. Politicians want to be political. They don't care what's right, what's wrong. They just want to be political. They want to keep their jobs. They want to climb the corporate ladder of politics and bullshit their way to power. And that's what he did. Now that Julia Gillard is gone, he is the opposition leader, and God forbid if Labour win in the next election, he's going to be the leader of the country. A man with no opinion of his own, as a puppet ruled by others in his party. Now, he should buy a T-shirt. He should get a T-shirt that says "I'm a puppet" and wear it in the Parliament. Or better yet, he should change his name to MP Puppet. God's sake. And Malcolm Turnbull is as fake a conservative. Now, I said Tony Abbott's a fake conservative. You haven't seen Malcolm Turnbull. You haven't seen Julie Bishop. I mean, the whole party is a party of fakes. But, I mean, they particularly, especially, they want to raise taxes even more. And you know what? I think a part of the reason Tony Abbott is doing this, I think Tony Abbott actually wants to just cut taxes, period. He was talking about this before the election. And he went back on his word on not introducing new taxes, not raising taxes. And I think, of course, you know, the buck stops right there. Now, he shouldn't have gone back on his promise, but he puts too much weight on what these people would think. He, I guess, doesn't want to alienate these high-ranking members of his party, like Malcolm Turnbull and Julie Bishop, and what's a few of them that I forgot, who are high-ranking in the party. They all want high taxes. They are all what you call progressive conservatives, which is the same as saying they're not conservatives. They're pretty much liberals in the party. They're masquerading as conservatives, and I guess Tony Abbott is feeling the pressure, and he's up, on one hand cutting taxes, on the other hand he's increasing taxes. So it's plus minus zero. It all balances out, and he'll have you believe that he's doing something worthwhile for the future of the country. And what's he doing worthwhile that's so worthwhile that even to apply for a position to be a toilet cleaner, you have to be a mathematics genius. None of that's going to change unless things fundamentally changed in the country, and only the government can pull itself out of regulation, because the more they regulate businesses, the higher taxes they put, the less resources employers have in order to potentially employ workers. So if you have zero to no regulation as to minimum wage, and if you don't regulate minimum wage, a lot of people would be happy to work for $7 an hour. But no, they put it as, how much is it now? 17, some ridiculous 17.50, I think it is. It's the highest. I think it's the highest in the world. Is it here or in Norway? Anyway, the minimum wage, get rid of it. And get rid of other red tape as well, like having every single employee has to have superannuation. Every single employee has to have provided health insurance. Companies simply don't have money to pay for all these things. And if they do have to pay, then they're going to make sure that they pay for the best, smartest, most the individual has the greatest potential you can find. So they're going to dig deep, and they're going to go to the fiery ends of the earth to scout out these geniuses. And everyone else who wasn't gifted by God, or if you believe in God, who wasn't gifted, who doesn't have the talent of being a mathematical genius, they're going to be left behind, and they're not going to have their toilet cleaner position to fall back on. So used to be, if you don't succeed in the corporate world, at least you can fall back on being a toilet cleaner or garbage man or what have you. But now that's getting a job like that is an achievement in itself. Luckily I don't have to resort to desperation, being forced to work a job as such, because even though my work is only casual, I still make enough money to make ends meet. Of course, I would like to have a full-time job with more hours and better pay, but it's just, and I've had a number of interviews since I came back from overseas. I was in Japan for a couple of years, and I had a period there where I had a hard time finding work. For a couple of months, I couldn't find. For a month. For a month, I couldn't find a job, even though I've been trying every day. But the reason I couldn't get a job there, I'll say it bluntly, was because of racism. The second they would see my face, they wouldn't want to hire me. Eventually, I was lucky enough to find a temporary job before I found a full-time job, and only my persistence and perseverance saved me. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked out for me there. But I mean, I'm doing the same exact thing here. I'm trying. Hello, but and you might have guessed by now why I haven't been doing this show regularly. Well, I have other things going on. So I'm looking for work on one hand. My studio is a mess on one hand. Doing another job on one hand, but I am going to put this website up. In the near future. It's going to be AndreMain.com. AndreMain.com. That's my name. And it's going to have a lot of resources, a lot of links to libertarian resources, conservative resources, associated organizations, the Libertarian Party of Australia, Canada, and the U.S. It's going to be a global website. I'm just going to solely focus on politics in Australia. I'm going to try and as much as I can with my voice alone, encourage the supports the popularity of fiscally conservative and libertarian-minded parties throughout the world, you know. And because history has shown us that global movements have a lot of weight behind them. Now, for example, Tony Abbott, he was in Canada the other day speaking with the Canadian Prime Minister, and Tony Abbott before had said that his words. Now, he said something like global warming is bullshit. I think he might have even said the word bullshit. Now, I don't remember exactly if he said bullshit, but he said something to that extent. That was a few years ago, and since then he had been heavily ridiculed by the left-wing media. And he had come to regret it because now his popularity is sagging even further because of other reasons, his poor policy making and all that. And he's trying to gain back some of the popularity by pulling back on the not believing in global warming thing, and he's now pretending to be a proponent of global warming. I'm sure he still doesn't believe in it. But, you know, it's all politics games. And so anyway, Tony Abbott and Canadian Prime Minister were there saying in a press conference together. They were saying that global warming is a huge threat to our modern society. They were saying something like that. And, you know, it was just a big charade. But, and I don't know this Canadian Prime Minister, but he's from the Canadian Conservative Party as well. So, you know, it might as well be that he himself doesn't believe that. I know for sure that Tony Abbott doesn't believe the drivel he's saying now. It's only to appease these left-wingers. But I don't think that's the way to go about it. You know, the way to go about it is not to appease the left. The reason he's sagging in popularity is not because he's not left-wing enough. If people wanted the left-winger in the party, they would have re-elected the Labour Party. But the reason they elected the Conservative Party, which is called the Liberal Party, the reason they elected the conservative-leaning party and their leader is because they want conservative values implemented. They don't like the way Labour had been leading in the past 6 years. They want a change. They want the country to spend less of their tax money. But he's not taking the hint. He's trying to play politics, and he's trying to listen to these assholes like Malcolm Turnbull and Julie Bishop telling him to spend, not caring about us, you know, taking money out of our coffers. And because of this, naturally, and you know, with a good reason, his popularity has dropped to a record low. Well, you know, we'll see if he changes his mind and comes to his senses eventually, and actually, you know, starts being as responsible as he's had promised to be before the election with our money, and hopefully. Well, that's too much to hope for, I guess. Too much to hope for that he will stop spending billions of dollars in fighting marijuana and raising taxes. I mean, at least if he does one of those things, if he just doesn't do the tax raises that he's proposed, that would be good. Because Labour, guess what? They would have, in a split second, raised all the taxes. They would have invented, as they were doing when they were in power, they would have invented 100 new taxes every day. Which is what they were doing, and to some extent, Tony Abbott is doing this. Well, he's less. I guess he's fractionally less tax raising than the alternative. But it's still. You wish I certainly wish we had more of a strong stance on the right side of politics against the liberals, because the liberals are never going to compromise. They never compromise a thing. They all talk politics among each other. You know, oh, I'm going to support whoever the leader is, like that Bowen jerk. But when it comes to doing what's right for the country, no, they don't care. They don't care at all. They don't even care if the opposition won't won't agree to support their tax raises, or because they will aggressively still attempt to pass them. Now, case in point, what's his name? The guy with a funny name, 30 or 40 years ago, who got impeached by the Attorney General. He was Labour, and he had persistently. He was a a pain in the neck. He had for months on end been pushing for further what's it called? Assimilation? What's it called? The technical term. Well, the raising taxes. And he had raised taxes to record levels. He had introduced the Australian equivalent of Obamacare, which was called Medibank, later renamed into Medicare. And even in spite of that, he still wanted to spend countless billions of dollars on other projects as well. And he was on the track to ruin the country. And it's lucky for us that the Attorney General threw him out of the office. Although the way in which it happened, I don't fully support the way in which it happened, because the Attorney General shouldn't have that power. It should be the people, should be the High Court, should be a democratic process. But most of Australians supported him being thrown out, and now Tony Abbott's made a lot of friends with his attorney generals and with his appointed governors because he has reintroduced the caste system, and a lot of them love being called dames and knights. So, and I'm sure that one of the reasons that he did it was because he himself down the track wants to be knighted. But, he's on the good side of the Attorney General, that's for sure. He appointed her. So, or him. The previous one was a lady, and this one is I don't remember who it is, but I don't think he's gonna. There's a possibility of him getting the boot from the Attorney General, but well, at least we can hope. We can hope. In fact, we shouldn't just hope. That's the reason I'm doing this. I want to raise the awareness and the concern of people. I mean, people are already concerned because they know the economic situation. They know what's happening. The taxes are being raised. But, we need to keep talking about it. And, it's up to me to just talk about it. But it's up to others. It's up to everyone, I guess, to actually to lobby, to send letters to your members of parliament, to your members of Senate, to do something, to encourage people to well, I guess not to force people to vote for who they don't want, but if people understand what's ruining our society, the taxation, the Greens policies, the labor policies, and people within the Liberal Party itself who are encouraging the Prime Minister to raise taxes, otherwise they're not going to support him, otherwise they're going to put Malcolm Turnbull up. Well, that will be an even greater disaster than Tony Abbott. And you're going to have Malcolm Turnbull, a progressive conservative, versus Chris Bowden, which is a puppet of Marxist Labour Party. And you're going to have two huge socialist-like people, and you're going to have to choose between one of them which one you want in the next election. And there's no difference. And it's a huge tragedy if that happens. So please, 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 come to your... I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to me by, this long, you know that... both Chris Bowden and Malcolm Turnbull would be disastrous for Australia. So, as long as this is out there and people understand and the message is spread that, raising taxes is bad and we need to cut red tape without compromise, the compromise being, appeasing the left side. You shouldn't... It's not working for Tony Abbott. His popularity is still dropping in spite of claiming to support global warming initiatives, fighting, raising... whatever, he's saying we should, it is a man-made global war. That's the word, those are the words he used. Now, first time, let me just explain this. First time, a few years ago, when he said he doesn't believe in global warming, he said... global warming is rubbish, bullshit. He said something like that. So later he said, well, I didn't mean that. I just mean global warming is real, but man-made global warming is not real. But now he's saying man-made global warming is the biggest threat of our times. That's what he's saying now. So it's a 180 complete switch from what he was saying originally. So which one he believes, I'll leave it up to you to decide. Personally, I believe it's all bullshit. He doesn't believe in global warming. And he's a devout Christian. I mean, his beliefs are very strong, in the Christian faith. He doesn't believe on those bases as well that global warming is possible. Now that's totally the wrong way to approach. That's totally illogical way to look at things. Global warming isn't not real because of God. It's not real because of the scientific evidence. Every factual scientific evidence shows that there is actually no consistent global warming. In fact, some years are slightly warmer, some years are slightly cooler. So there's neither global warming nor global cooling. But now he's saying there's global warming. It's the hugest threat to mankind ever. That's what he's saying now. But it's still, his popularity is still sagging. So at some point, conservative leaders will have to understand that in order to increase their popularity, they'll have to stand strong in their beliefs. It can't just back down. They can't just succumb to. They can't just work politics with the lefties. They can't, as John, what's his face, McMahon? No. Who was the Republican? The guy who failed miserably in the 2008 election versus Obama, John McCain. He can't be like McCain and try and lean across the aisle. McCain failed miserably as well. One of the reasons was because he was up against Obama. But it doesn't matter who you're up against. If you try and be, kind of on the fence, and you don't know which way you're going, and if you're a flip-flopper, you're gonna lose. People are not gonna have faith in you, and you're not gonna be able to convince anyone that you know the best way for the country. Now, the people on the left, even though they know the absolute worst way to take the country, they always do the absolute worst for the country, and they are not willing to compromise at all with anyone. They just want to raise taxes and make it a socialist Marxist society as they possibly can, and they will not hear anything to negate that. In spite of these crazy convictions that these people have, they still are very popular in their right because they stand by their beliefs. And if we have leaders like Tony Abbott who are flip-floppy and who say one thing but then they say another thing, or even Chris Bowden, he says one thing another thing. Whatever Chris Bowden is should be the textbook definition of flip-flopper. He said he supported Julia Gillard 1,000% behind the carbon tax and mining tax, and now he's trying to downplay his involvement. And the reason he supported it, I don't even know if he was educated about those taxes, how they work. He was just supporting it because he wanted to support the prime minister, so that the prime minister would give him make him a minister of something, transport or whatever. It's the way these people play politics is gonna ruin us. And look at where we are right now. Listen to remember what I just told you about how impossible it is to become a toilet cleaner on Sydney trains? Well, things are that bad. And it takes 2 interviews, if you're even lucky to get one, in order to work at McDonald's. So it's not like people who are relying on government dole Centrelink, it's not like all of them, even if they are uni graduates, have a choice. A lot of people are seriously trying to get employed, but it's really, really hard. And, the point is, Tony Abbott should snap out of it, stop supporting left-wing agenda, or even pretending to support left-wing agenda in order to raise his popularity rating. Popularity rating means shit. As long as he can focus on what's important and not listen to... Now, Malcolm Turnbull is a huge threat to us, because if he doesn't listen to Malcolm Turnbull, if he doesn't listen to Julie Bishop and those clowns, then they're going to replace him with Malcolm Turnbull. And Malcolm Turnbull is going to raise all taxes. He's going to be the same as Labour. But Tony Abbott should still stand up to all of them and say, no, I'm the leader. And, he shouldn't try and pretend to be pro-carbon, pro-tax, against global warming. He shouldn't try and pretend to... He shouldn't raise taxes in order to provide government services, because these go in spite of all his... pre-election promises. He's showing that he's breaking promises and that he's not as much of a man of principle as he had made himself out to be. I mean, surprise, surprise, politicians are like that, but for crying out loud, how can I conclude this? Just, you know what? We need to be a republic. We need to elect our leader. Because our leader can just willy-nilly be overturned by his own party, and they can put someone else on top in a day. They can, that morning they can change the leader, and you can have a new prime minister. And they can do this to Tony Abbott, and he knows that they can do this to him. So he's letting them play him however they want, as long as he fulfills all their agenda and leans over backwards and does this and that and the other thing for everyone and their grandmother, instead of following his convictions and instead of keeping up his promises and doing what he thinks is the best for the country. That's why we need to directly elect our rulers. We need to have an election system where we vote for the individual and their vice president, and we need to have them lead us without the fear of their party replacing them with some other clown if he doesn't do everything that the manipulators in their party want him to do. And that can have dire consequences if you elect someone like Obama, who's a dictator, and who, well, he has his own convictions, and he probably does think he's doing the best, but he's actually doing as bad as you can possibly do by the people of America, by raising minimum wage at the expense of jobs. The more you raise minimum wage, the more you cut jobs, because the more employers have to pay people, the fewer staff they can hire. So more people are going to be unemployed, and the worse economy you're going to have. The more people you make pay for welfare, pay for everyone else's welfare, pay for even their own welfare if they don't want to pay, the more money they lose, and the less money they have to spend in the economy. And, all these conditions, like introducing all these new taxes, makes it harder for companies to pay their employees any more than the minimum wage. So they're trying to have a society, like a socialist society, where everyone gets paid more or less an even wage, and no one can have a dream of owning their own home, a fancy car, anything like that. Everyone, as long as everyone is equal, that's their utopia. That's their Marxist utopia. That's what they aim. And if you have millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of uneducated voters who only vote in the case of Obama, they voted for him for being black, and they got screwed. They got screwed in the ass because he's doing all that and more to ruin the economy to the point of no return. Hopefully, by the time the next election is held, in 2016, or even this year, the what do you call it? The by-election, electing the Congress members. Hopefully, they will elect enough people on the Republican side in order to stop Obama from passing all those laws that are hurting the economy. Although he has shown that even if his proposed acts are either shut down by the Congress, if they're not passed by the Congress, or if they're filibustered out of Congress by people opposing them, like I said, Obama's a dictator, and he uses what they call executive orders. So with those executive orders, he basically acts as a dictator, and he can do whatever he wants. He can violate the Constitution and take private land, take state-owned land away from their proprietors, and give it to the government. He can do whatever, and he is doing just that. But if you don't have that system of electing your, I mean, you're never going to have a perfect system. So in the case of Australian politics, the problem we have is because we don't directly elect our leader, and that's why they can within that corrupt party, they have a huge, they have two parties, same as this in America, in House of Representatives. They have two parties, and both of them are extremely corrupt, and they only serve their own interests. And in order to please them enough for them to actually let you stay as their as the leader of their party, you need to bend over backwards thrice, and you need to be a complete manipulated puppet of the party and bend to everyone's needs within the party and everyone's wishes, and eventually this is what happens. Tony Abbott promised us one thing, but he's unable to fulfill his promise because they are threatening him with switching him with Malcolm Turnbull, who is going to do all these things that Tony Abbott really doesn't want to do, like raise taxes to high end. And the same damn thing happened to Julia Gillard in the Labour Party. So he now also has to find middle ground. So we desperately need to elect our own leaders. And if we do, we need to spread. I'm trying to do my part, but we need to spread the word more. We need to educate more people on the pros and cons of. Well, actually, it's only cons when it comes to the left-wing party. When it comes to progressive politics, when it comes to socialism, when it comes to Marxism, people are just not educated about they look at our economy and they know it's shit. They know it's crap, horrible economy. And they can't put their finger on why. They think it's all because of the greed of corporations. But that's not the case. It's because of the government, the greed of the government, their unnecessary regulations, their taxation, their omnipotent, their overruling, their desire to keep their jobs first and foremost, and they don't intend to see it any other way. They're not going to cut the government size. They're not going to cut their pays. They're going to do the opposite. They're going to expand the government. They're going to raise their salaries, their own salaries. Wouldn't you if you could? That's what they do. Maybe not at the expense of the whole country, but there are certainly people out there who would do that. And the people who would do that are Malcolm Turnbull, Julie Bishop, and I've been screwing up his name. It's not Chris Bowen. He's the previous imbecile. The current one is called Bill Shorten. So whenever I was saying Chris Bowen in this instance, in this episode, I've been thinking Bill Shorten. So just swap those two. There's a TV ad on at the moment here in Australia, something about baby products, and there's this really ugly looking baby, and it's a terrible thing to say about babies. I have a baby myself, but I mean, it looks exactly the same as this Bill Shorten guy, and if you don't know what he looks like, if you want to look up his name, his picture on Google, brace yourselves to be blown away by how repulsive this guy looks. I mean, he could make himself look better simply by smiling from time to time, but he always has like a grumpy, bitter old man grimace on his face. He always shows his teeth, but only the lower jaw teeth. Like he's always grumpy and angry. Like that's the only image I have of the guy. How can anyone like him? Never mind his horrible policies. Just look at him and you'll be repulsed. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this long edition. But it's been a couple of weeks now, so it's been coming. And that, I guess, justifies it being this long, although I'll try and make them more frequent from now on. Well, thank you for listening, and keep tuning in. I'll keep you updated on the progress of amradio.com, or, sorry, andremain.com. It's not amradio.com. and I'll fix my studio up, so I'll be back with more video editions. Until then, have a good one. See you later.